Hello everyone, my name is Neela Imani and I'm a master's student in the Graduate Interdisciplinary Program at York University, Toronto, Canada. Before I begin, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me, and I would like to extend my gratitude and best wishes to all attendees. The presentation before you, Self-Orientalism Repackaged, Wong Fried Rice, is one of 4 case studies as part of my thesis, titled The Racial Politics of Graphic Design, a Transversalist Approach to Anti-Racist Literacy. Let's get started. Globalization has prompted a multicultural retheorization of both consumer and market. Beyond ethnocentric purchasing behaviors, white North American consumers are increasingly exhibiting cosmopolitan and even xenocentric reorientations. Recognizing the viability and competition of imported goods, domestic companies have diversified their portfolios to market internationally inspired products. This demand has not escaped diasporic enclaves either. In other words, entrepreneurial networks that have been purveying transnational goods tailored to local palates since the 19th century. In short, the multicultural market consists of international goods which are authentic, domestic goods purporting authenticity, for example, Orientalism, and multinational fusion innovations that are authentic-ish, for example, self-Orientalism. What can result is a fetishistic commercialization of multiculturalism, where brands package ethnicity and race to vie for consumer attention. This paper addresses the latter variety, self-Orientalist packaging designed for products born out of formerly Chinese-Canadian enterprises, namely Wong Fried Rice. The study begins with a brief overview of the product's proprietary history, followed by an iterative comparison of the package pre- and post-acquisition by McCain Foods Limited. The package is then subject to a comprehensive visual analysis informed by ethnic and racial studies. I will consider the following questions. 1. How are self-Orientalist typologies reproduced in consumer packages and labels? 2. How is self-Orientalist packaging discursively negotiated? And 3. How might anti-racist approaches be incorporated into graphic design? The main theoretical framework underlying my analysis is transversalism, a policy which not opposed but alternative to identity politics that acknowledges intersectionalities and proposes interlocutors transcend their ideological differences to support a common cause, in this case anti-racism. A form of coalition politics that celebrates universality in diversity, transversalism does not require collocutors to self-decenter to center others, which can result in an uncritical solidarity, instead encouraging them to pivot the center. This process requires participants exercise a critical openness and make systematic attempts to co-create commoning platforms for transformative perspectives, plans, and praxes. The motivation behind this study is a general interest in the materiality of racism within the context of graphic design. As a novice researcher, I approached this topic with a limited understanding of critical race theory, but also a critical openness which ultimately ensured the adoption of a holistic decolonial framework that considers a variety of data. In accordance with transversalist principles, I attempt to distill and reconcile otherwise antithetical perspectives on self-Orientalist packaging, in part so that I can exercise greater reflexivity and critical consciousness in my own work of cross-cultural perception and representation as a graphic designer, resulting in a more thoughtful and creative praxis. This study relies on a qualitative mixed methods approach, drawing on key marketing concepts, namely unethical market segmentation. Autoethnography is coupled with purposive sampling for data collection of racialized consumer packages, in which the packages and labels graphic design is foci. The package for this case study, hereby identified by brand name, is Wong Fried Rice. The sample was observed and photographed at the Canadian food retail chain Real Canadian Superstore, more commonly known as Superstore, located at 1755 Brimley Road, Scarborough, Toronto, Canada. The sample was also visually inspected at neighboring chain stores to maximize the study's generalizability and capture the racial nuances of each package in greater detail. Secondary field sites include Walmart, No Frills, and Freshco. Beginning operations in 1948, Wong Foods Inc. was developed by Chinese-French-Canadian siblings Marcel and Lucille Wong. Named after the founders and financial backer Mr. Wing, the family firm soon grew to become Canada's largest purveyor of Chinese North American cuisine, effectively placing Montreal on the gastronomical map. Such was the enterprise's reputation that it was the sole supplier of Chinese-style cuisine at Expo 67 and 86 in Montreal and Vancouver, respectively. In 2002, after several advances, the Wong family relinquished ownership to McCain Foods Limited. The acquisition ushered in several new developments, including package redesigns, an effort to reposition the brand and increase profit margins. In 2021, McCain sold its majority stake to investor group MLW Foods Inc., led by Champlain Financial Corp. Former Director of Marketing Julian Roll's reference to the redesigned package as a new image is an inexact description, considering the replication of visual elements from past communications. Wong Wing Fried Rice recycles trademarks, motifs, and symbols from advertisements, packages, and labels produced under the original proprietorship. Hence, the redeveloped package simply regurgitates self-Orientalist components. It is a pastiche. Above all, McCain Foods Limited commissioned Montreal-based brand agency Origami for the redesign. The president and creative principal of the establishment, Michael Wu, is a designer of East Asian ethnicity. Wu speaks to the branding strategy as both authentically Asian and exotic. It could be argued, then, Wong Wing Fried Rice is a self-Orientalist reinterpretation of a self-Orientalist interpretation. The current trademark's typeface mimics the calligraphic nature of Chinese characters. Historically popularized as wonton, chop suey, chopstick, and Chinatown, this font was developed to evoke Asianness to the Western masses. Research suggests it is derivative of an earlier permutation by the Cleveland Type Foundry, eponymously named Chinese and later Mandarin. Keto 2021 argues the font family's release in 1883, a year after the American Chinese Exclusion Act and 2 years prior to the Canadian Chinese Immigration Act, was not coincidental. The font was often juxtaposed with caricatures evoking the racial color metaphor yellow peril, which refers to East Asian people as a societal threat. The sinicization of English type is also a Western attempt to desinicize East Asian diaspora, whereby they are coerced into a proclivity for English and Orientalist interpretations of Chinese and Chinese typography. This long-standing relationship with prejudice, bigotry, and intolerance has come to characterize the typeface. Wonton cannot escape its racist dimensions. The self-Orientalist reproduction of stereotypography in Wong Wing Fried Rice only rubber stamps its colonial usage. The tapered package conforms to the Western misconception and fetishistic obsession with Orientalized innovations as authentically Asian. Contrary to popular belief, the oyster pail is an American post-World War II response. However, in the 1970s, a graphic designer for the now Foldpak company designed an oyster pail with a pagoda motif and the phrase "thank you" in the stereotypical typeface. The superimposition of Orientalist type and Buddhist imagery on a coincidentally origami-like container was enough to beguile the North American public. This distinction seems to have escaped the creatives in charge of the Wong Wing redesign also, describing the new package as resembling a Chinese takeout box. Ever since the oyster pail has been falsely iconized as a symbol of Chineseness, it has simultaneously been used as a tool to exoticize and marginalize those of East Asian descent. In 2020, former art director of British Columbia-based Lululemon Athletica Inc., Trevor Fleming, Instagrammed a racist, xenophobic t-shirt proselytizing a now debunked belief that COVID-19 is a result of bat consumption in Wuhan, China. The t-shirt was condemned for instigating COVID-related anti-Asian sentiment, which is since on the rise in North America. Thus, for many in the Chinese community, the oyster pail has come to represent racially charged mockery. Wong Wing's fried rice package decontextualizes Chinese motifs and symbols. The hanging scroll, for example, which is historically preserved for calligraphic and painted works meant for temporary display, is repurposed here as a static commercial ornament. The use of saturated tones also contrasts with traditional conventions, where more harmonious balances are considered. Moreover, hanging scrolls are typically hung vertically, with only the hand scroll having a horizontal format. The dragon imagery, which wraps around the banner, vilifies the national symbol's origins. In Chinese culture, the Chinese dragon is a sacred legendary creature which has come to represent auspiciousness, virtue, wisdom, and community. Providing spiritual sustenance and physical safety, the Chinese dragon is deified for summoning wind and rain. Chinese dragon varieties that exhale fire are a rarity, regarded as punishments for moral transgressions. Hence, the juxtaposition of the Chinese dragon with fiery tones fuels the Western perception of the Chinese dragon as only a fire-breathing monster. The malevolent Western beast, popularized by the likes of J.R.R. Tolkien and J.K. Rowling, is projected onto the benevolent Eastern avatar. Zhu 2015 classifies such false impressions as contagions, adding, if one mistakes the virtuous Chinese dragon as those evil Western dragons, then misunderstanding the whole nation is possible. His argument, although controversial, is not without basis. The perpetual misinterpretation of East Asian cultural components as evil mythologizes Chinese people as having aggressive manners of expression. The retail industry both publicly declares and perpetuates the idea that there is pleasure to be found in the acknowledgement and enjoyment of racial difference. The commodification of otherness offers consumers more intense, more satisfying than normal ways of doing and feeling. Racialized packages have quite literally become the spice, adding piquancy to the mundanities of everyday Western life. To this day, Canadian supermarket aisles show varying degrees of performative Chineseness. But Wong fried rice is unique in that it embodies a multi-generational self-Orientalism. Ironically, Wu is an East Asian imitating East Asians imitating white people imitating East Asianness. Even though he has not manufactured these stereotypes, his redesign helps cement them into the Western consciousness. Wong fried rice is essentially a, quote, contemporary revival of interest in the primitive with a distinctly postmodern slant. Packages that reinforce the colonial gaze simultaneously ease wayfinding for Orientalist consumers, further privileging whiteness. The phenomenon of racialized packages, although mediagenic, can do a great disservice to people of color. Yet this self-othering is hardly ill-intentioned. The historical application or enactment of racial stereotypes by members of the culture in question is not always a form of internalized racism, rather a necessitated strategy for survival. People of color are cognizant of the symbology which represents them, possessing a definitive perception of themselves, their racialization, and how others perceive them. This cultural hyper-awareness is best deconstructed in W.E.B. Du Bois' theory of double consciousness. By tapping into this hyperconsciousness, non-white racialized peoples can access social structures and services that they would otherwise not be privy. Since the 19th century, Chinese Canadians have overcome socioeconomic barriers by way of self-caricature and standardization. Of course, such self-othering representations, despite their pragmatisms, are highly contested. However, polemics against self-orientalizing are also problematized. Chatelain 2021 reminds us to exercise compassion towards individuals navigating few choices, rather directing our criticisms to the very institutions and systems which took those choices away. But beyond these conventional interpretations lie positionalities unconsidered. Chinese-Canadian artist J.J. Lee reminds us that self-orientalism can also be a form of equal opportunity appropriation, reclamation of cultural elements formerly co-opted and misappropriated by the dominant culture. The preceding analysis, which considers the positionalities of experts, practitioners, laypersons, and consumers, explores the phenomenon and nuances of racialized packaging, or more specifically self-orientalist packaging. The study confirms the non-neutrality of self-orientalist packages, revealing how self-orientalist packaging and label design is discursively negotiated as both internalized racism and anti-racist resistance. In the case of Wong fried rice, while the original package speaks to the notion of Chinese authenticity, actively positivizing negativized cultural components, the redesigned package centers on a creative alliance that accommodates a European re-presentation of Chineseness, making a spectacle of the other. Whereas the original package reconstructed Orientalist notions as counter-Orientalist, the redesigned package reconstructs counter-Orientalist packaging as self-Orientalist. Thus, the redesign necessitates a renewed design approach, one which reflects the socio-political context in which products are branded. More so, graphic designers are encouraged to exercise critical consciousness, familiarizing themselves with the histories and implications of their decisions. That concludes my presentation. For a complete reference list, please visit the following link. Thank you.